Great. Hello, everyone. This is the Creative Mind Podcast, and I'm here with Ruth Lucero, and my name and I'm the host of it, is Janet Nelson. So we're here to talk about sensory learners and how they work in the world, how they think, and how to teach them, those kind of things that the education community is wrestling with right now, and that we often don't recognize, and you don't find it on the internet anywhere so far. But things are changing, and we are so thankful for that. But the best people to find out about this is those that have lived it. And so, but they are very sensitive to the spiritual world around us, and that will come out in the podcast now and going forward. Ruth, can you tell us about yourself?
Where do I start? I'm 88 years old, retired, of course. I'm an artist and a Christian. Those things have pretty much taken my life through the many trails that we've gone down, and can see where one thing has led to another thing. And you have to see how, because I went through this, prepared me for going through the next thing.
Yes.
And we have to learn as we go.
I hear you. And you're a big picture person.
Yeah.
And that's what shows. And I love that, because it is. We learn from the past to take us into the future.
Right.
It's not just about that moment.
No.
That's huge. So in your mind, do you see in pictures, words? How do you process information?
I see in pictures. I need to see it visually to make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I do it too much. I don't know, but I can.
So what's too much?
How can I explain too much? Well, sometimes I can see where that person is coming from, and they might not know it themselves. But I can see kind of the spirit behind where they're at.
Okay, that's cool.
And you have to deal with that kind, because you can't have your spiritual self fighting with what that person is going through.
Yeah.
You have to understand where they're coming from, if you can.
Sure, very much so.
You can.
That's
That's
cool.
a visual. I mean, I can see that person is an angry person, and I can see the anger.
Mm-hmm. That's
or
awesome.
the peace.
Or the peace, yes. That is cool. So when somebody is giving a lecture, what do you need to really follow the lecture?
I need them to do a lot of illustrations, examples, and storytelling.
Okay. So words, pictures on the screen kind of thing, verbal analogies.
Word pictures, yeah.
Word pictures.
And analogies, yeah.
Analogies. How about associations?
Yeah, association.
Okay. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Matthias uses a lot of associations. So he'll sit down to figure out a new idea, and he'll come up with 5 analogies in his head, and then have to decide which one is the best one before he starts talking about
that
it. That
makes sense to me, yeah.
Okay, there you go. But he also uses associations to remember, like science, facts particularly. So he was trying to figure. I forgot what the word is. Ectodermic. So he took it to a class of cold water before it became a cold-blooded animal.
Oh,
but you can see it, you know, a
Yeah.
picture of that Coke, right?
right.
And it's cold. So that makes sense why it would be a cold-blooded animal.
To him, that would make sense. I can
Yes.
understand that.
Yeah, yeah,
I might have a different analogy, but
yeah, or a different
Whatever works.
association, but yeah,
association, yeah.
yeah. But you gotta have a picture to
Of
make
what
that
a
thing work.
cold thing is, yes.
Yes, okay. So that is cool. So I know you're an artist. So what is your process? Oh, she's an incredible painter. So, and she does natural paintings, absolutely beautiful. So what is your process of doing those paintings?
Well, I have to first of all see it in my mind, what I'm going to put on the canvas or paper.
Mhm.
And if I see it clearly and it's satisfying in my thinking, then I can trace it off on the canvas because I already see it on there, just like it's traced on there. When I illustrated the book, I had to make the person look the same all the way through, so it'd be recognizable. So I had to get some plasticine and make a clay head so I could turn that around and visually see what they would look like. And it's almost like you do that with everything. You can see it from different angles,
Mhm.
but you have to see it in your mind first and then change it around to see.
That is cool. I do know sometimes when it's not clear in your head, you have to take that process of, you know, doing a drawing and you go, oh, that's not right. And they keep working at it.
I do. I have a file folders full of pictures that I've cut out of different things, like different animals in different poses, and maybe a lake and what the reflection looks like when the sun is coming from this way or that way. And then I can look at those and go through and get a picture in my mind then more clearly of how I want to present it.
Mm.
The hardest part is when I have to illustrate a thought or a feeling.
Mm.
Then I have to decide what that feeling looks like, which is then it has to be through gestures or facial expressions,
Mm.
what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
If you can't see the face, then you have to have the gestures of.
Right. Yeah. Right now you're doing a painting on desperation.
I am, and it's very difficult of what does desperation look like.
Particularly for a
Right
deer.
now it's how I'm feeling down. But I'm not doing a facial expression of a person, I'm doing an animal, so that's what I'm working at. I keep changing it and making them in a different position, and I haven't narrowed him down to the right one yet.
You'll do it.
Yeah, I'll get there.
So in that process of learning about desperation, what have you learned about that feeling?
I have to feel it myself first before I can illustrate it.
Mhm.
And I have thought back on the many times in my life where I have felt desperate to having God do something for me.
Mm.
And it's always come true.
Mhm.
When you get to that point, you know that there's nothing you can do for yourself.
Mm.
It's totally out of your hands and you need help.
Yeah. So that's what you're making the deer feel.
Yes,
that
if I don't get to that water, I'm going to die.
Yeah. Wow. I'm looking forward to seeing the painting.
I wish I'd chosen another verse.
She was supposed to take her favorite verse of the Bible and put a painting on it. And this is her fault. She chose it.
I did. I chose it.
So I know you often have gone to powwows. Why were you drawn to the Native American culture?
Well, I was told from childhood that I had Indian heritage. And so I leaned that direction of that's part of me more than my mother being from Scotland, but I never really felt Scottish.
Mhm,
I felt more native.
mhm.
And when I started selling my artwork at the powwows, at the rodeos, I then got into powwows, and I met some very good friends that he did silver work and she did beadwork, and he's a Colville.
Mhm.
And so I started setting up at powwows with them,
Mm.
and they became like my children.
So special, so
Yeah,
special.
yeah, he still calls me mom.
Mhm. So we were talking about often when they do have speakers, they can take all day.
Yes.
But when they speak, what do they use to really make it make sense to the people, to their crowd?
Well, they're speaking to people of like nationality that
Right,
would understand that that's the way it's done, more than if person that came in and had never been to a powwow before, they would not understand the procedure.
right.
So the native people will listen to the storytelling that the speaker is giving out and connect with that.
So there's a lot of storytelling.
There's a lot of storytelling.
Yeah. My understanding of Native American culture, the way history was passed down, and morals and all those things were all passed down from the older generation telling stories to the younger generation.
Right. They didn't have it written down. It was all oral.
Mhm. Yeah,
And it had to go from one generation to the next,
right.
the morals and the history.
Yeah. And and they often use associations like the feather being a sign of authority,
Mhm.
and position. They use associations a lot in their art.
Yes,
Yeah. Um, and truthfully, things that you see on the caves, those kind of things, that is their speech,
it is.
because that's how they actually think.
Right. In
Okay.
pictures.
In pictures.
Right.
It makes sense, and they're incredible.
Right.
So basically, they think like you do.
Or I think like they do.
There you go. Um, so how important is the details of a picture?
The detail on the main focus, what you want to focus in, that should be detailed. If you're a realistic painter,
Right,
not an abstract.
right.
But still, you'd have to, if you want them to focus on one spot, that's where you've got the most detail. The outline area can be filler and eye stopper, keep you focused,
Mhm.
but it doesn't have to be in detail.
Okay,
It can be suggestive.
okay.
You can put 3 leaves in and your mind will say there's a bush
Mhm.
with many leaves.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, Very much. Okay, how how did school go for you?
Heard.
Mm.
Depend on the subject, of course. I got straight A's in art.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
And I did well in English and history, but things like chemistry and things that I did very poorly in math. And try as I could, and as much as my mother tried to coach me, I never could spell well.
Mm. Comprehend. I comprehend. How did you learn to read?
The Dick and Jane books,
Okay, but they had a lot of illustrations.
they did. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, picture books.
Yeah, I get it. We now have graphic novels
Oh,
that they use a
yeah,
lot. Pictures,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
With words. That
Right.
makes sense. Yeah. So, um, so how did you do well in English? Did like short stories make sense to you?
Yeah, yeah, short stories.
Okay.
And I did like to read,
Okay.
but I like to read stories that I was interested in. I read a lot of horse stories.
Okay. I think that's true of all of us. We like to read what we like to read, not other stuff.
Yeah,
Tragedies weren't my favorite.
I recall when I was in the first, second grade, that age group, I had to ride the school bus school, and I had an imaginary black horse that ran alongside. I don't know who was on the bus with me, but I know where the horse was going.
I comprehend. I comprehend. So in remembering vocabulary words, how did you remember those things?
I had a hard time with that structure
Okay.
of English. I like to read, but it come to writing and verbs and pronouns and all that, I had a more hard time with those things unless I couldn't connect it visually.
Okay. Ruby, who we had on last time, she said that they're now doing some associations when they're talking about vocabulary to make it, and for, well, the class as a whole, the third graders, they all did their own associations. So some of them had visuals that made it make sense. Others had movements. Yeah. Others had associations, whatever worked for that child. But it opened up a whole, oh, I get it. Because I can see it visually.
Yeah, well, it's been a year or two since I was in third grade.
Yeah, well, they did it definitely in you memorize it.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going. Just memorizing a fact is hard.
It is. And sometimes, you struggle with it and then all of a sudden, oh.
Yeah.
But it never worked for algebra.
I comprehend. Heather, a friend of mine, said she'd read something and it was like the fact or idea was hanging in her mind, just outside of being able to put it into words. And then something would happen and it would become part of the whole cabin, the whole picture.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I got it. That it?
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Okay. You gotta have the big picture. These little pieces, yeah, they're just pieces.
Just pieces, yeah. I need more illustrations.
I understand. I'm trying to think. Okay, well, when Matthias was reading, when he gets to the end of a book, he can tell you the big picture of it. But some of the details, he can't tell you. Was that true of you?
Yes.
Okay. See, if somebody just said, just give me your stream of thought. What did you get out of the book? You could have done that.
Yeah.
But if they ask you a bunch of individual questions about the details, that would be hard.
Right.
Okay.
Might even have a hard time figuring out what I got out of it. I might be able to tell you the gist of the story, but I don't know if I got anything out of it.
Interesting. Yeah. But you have a picture somewhere in your mind. Isn't that the big picture in itself?
Maybe it is. Maybe I wasn't that interested. I don't know.
But what I'm struggling here right now is Messiah struggled with putting what he sees in pictures in words for a long time. Because you have to, they're two different languages in some ways.
Right.
So if you have a picture at the end, you understand it.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with that?
You illustrated the book as you went along.
There you go. So you got it. So why do you have to put it into words? For you to for you to understand it. You got it.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
But you tell yourself, I didn't get it because I can't put it into words. And I'm going, that's not true. You got it. You got it in a picture form that makes sense to your brain. That's enough. You enjoyed the book.
Right. The book I illustrated, I can tell you what the pictures were that I drew, but I can't tell you all the details of the story.
There you go. That makes sense. Yeah. Matthias has gotten to a point that he can actually put it into a paragraph. But that's not true of everyone. And so
he's only 18.
He's only 18.
Give him time.
Yeah. he amazes me how well he can write. But that's his gift. You know, he is a communicator, but he's also had a lot of people working with him to help him figure out how to put those pictures into words.
Oh,
which is a wonderful thing, because in relationships and other things in life, you have to be able to communicate what you're thinking. So it's kind of cool just to see the differences and similarities. Oh, the apples. Messiah said when asked to do a new project, art project, it's like he's got a pool of apples flowing through his mind. Yeah, all those pictures flowing through his mind. And you said you have a ton of pictures and stuff. Being as older you are, you have tons of things to draw from. You don't necessarily use the apple thing, but you have a lot of pictures going through him.
right.
How hard is it to pick which one?
Trial and error. I can put one down and put it together, and then it's just not coming together what I want to say in that picture. So then I have to change things. Maybe the time of day, maybe take that mountain and put it in the background, or take that tree out. I have to readjust things to make a good composition and have it say what I want it to say. But it usually isn't just a one-time shot.
Yeah, so you tend to do a number of drawings to get there. Yeah, that's the way Miss Sice was taught how to do posters. You know, so you take the first picture, right, and you cut it down to fit on your paper, and then you take another one and you play with it, right? And so you have your first one, but you're going, oh, that's not quite right. Let's come back, and then you do another one, and you end up with like 6 or 7 of them before you have to go, that's enough. We're going to stop there.
Well, that's the same as me doing sketches.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And somewhere along the way, you have to say, that's enough.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Let's just get that down on canvas.
Yeah.
Quit fussing over it.
Perfectionism tends to be
Yes.
in artist's blood.
Yeah.
I know. So what would you like to tell the young Matthias out there?
There are no mistakes. There's readjustments.
That's huge.
There's erasers on your pencil for a reason. But keep working around what you're doing, but don't point out to your mistakes to other people, because then that's all they'll see. If it's not right in your mind, keep it to yourself and work at it to try to get it to satisfy your mind. But you want to get out there what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
But it's harder when you're trying to put out what somebody else wants you to say. Because you got to see what they're thinking in your mind then.
Yeah. How hard is it to ask those questions to get that pinned down from somebody else?
Well, it's just a matter of asking questions and thinking that you know what they're thinking. And if it isn't, well, that's what I saw, and that's the way it is.
There you go.
I've done some paintings that I wasn't sure whether they were satisfied with the outcome or not, but as long as they paid me, it
was okay. I agree.
Did the best I could.
There you go. Art is very individualistic.
Yeah.
No matter how much you want to meet the other person's expectations or what they want, it still comes down to what's individualistic. And I love your paintings.
But I did a commission work. People had a racehorse. And they wanted a painting of their racehorse, but they wanted included the pictures of some of the offspring
Mm,
of that horse. So I had to make it like a collage
mhm.
and put them here and there, and they seemed to like it. I wasn't real happy with it because it was out of my style.
Sure.
So I probably didn't do as well as somebody that was used to that style.
Right.
But to me, it came out okay. It looked like the horses, so
Hey, that's positive. I can't do horses, so
I don't know what they were expecting.
no. And speaking from somebody that would commission a person that does artistic things, I wouldn't know precisely because I don't see in pictures that way. So trying to describe it to you makes it hard because I don't see it.
Yeah,
So, you do your best.
if it's a commission where they just leave it open and have me do a bull rider,
Uh-huh.
well, I can do a bull rider.
There you go. Understand.
So but if they want a specific one,
Mhm.
then I have to have pictures to look at, because if I don't know that person, then it's like a portrait.
Mhm. Yeah,
So that's harder.
definitely. A question came up in my mind going back to reading. If you have a picture in mind after reading, could you have communicated that picture to a teacher?
I probably could now, but when I was 18, I couldn't have, I don't think,
Okay.
because I didn't understand it as much. But I didn't have the instructions that he's had
Uh-huh.
at 18. So I just had high school art. And that's pretty general.
Right. Did you, you didn't have any drawing then?
There was a little bit of drawing, but mostly they had you trying different things. Like you'd have a few weeks of this style and a few weeks of that style, and history on where this came from. And
Right.
and when it came to teaching you how to do an oil painting, you had to do different styles. And you only had a few weeks to do it. So
Right. It was fun, but that doesn't make it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And only had in class to do it in.
Yeah.
I didn't have the stuff at home to work with it.
Right.
And I'm sure other people did, but
I don't think I could have taught Matthias if he hadn't started learning to draw early.
I learned to draw before I could write.
Hmm.
I had a little blackboard,
Uh-huh.
a little slate, they called them,
Okay.
when I was not in school yet. And I used to draw horses on it
Oh.
and ask my dad. And he would say, "Oh, that's really great." But I knew it wasn't.
Uh-huh.
A stick horse, when you're 5, to a parent is probably a good thing. But you know what? But I knew it didn't look like horses weren't stick horses.
Understand.
So I kept working at it.
Yeah. Matthias was never satisfied with this stuff, but he always wanted to start school with his drawing. That was the first thing at kindergarten, first, second, third grade. Yeah. Got to start with drawing. And then he was okay to do the rest of the stuff. But yeah, you got to start with drawing.
I had sketches of things across the top of my paper, horses and people and
Mhm. Yeah. One of the things I would love to see in part of school is recognize artists in elementary. So that in junior high, you can start. Well, right now, kids get hurt in high school. Then they end up in a special program, but they're really hurt and scared and frightened, and you have to work through all the fear. If you recognize them in elementary and then work it through in junior high, put them in that program to learn how to draw, those special things that help them, they might be able to handle regular high school, or they could end up in special program for artists. But you got to recognize them early and give them the tools.
they didn't do that when I was in grade school.
Yeah.
I don't remember any art classes. I'm sure they had some kind of art.
Yeah.
But when I started school, there were 2 grades in each room.
Mm-hmm.
And the teachers didn't
Right.
work with you that with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like I say, I'm talking ideal. There's some situations where you can't, and we understand that. But like I said, if they're given the tools, like in grade school or junior high, to communicate what they're seeing,
Yeah,
it would make a big difference in high school, what they can accomplish.
yes. That brings to mind that in high school, my child education class, for my final, you were supposed to write out what you learned.
Mhm.
I drew it in pictures.
Did the teacher accept it?
No,
Oh,
I just barely passed.
okay. But I'm proud of you. That's perfect. That's communicating that you really learned.
I did. Otherwise, I couldn't have drawn it.
Exactly, exactly. But, and this is where the school's learning at this point. How do we communicate with these kids that actually think in pictures
Yeah,
and aren't sequential like you aren't, Yeah, why would I remember all those details that don't make a picture?
right.
You know? Yeah,
At this age, the kid crawled. So I drew a kid crawling.
yeah. Perfect.
I thought so.
Yeah. Way to go, girl. So, well, this has been fascinating for me. Learning more and more as we go forward. So again, this is the Creative Mind Podcast. Thank you for listening in. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
I enjoyed doing it.
Good.